What if the most valuable thing you possess has nothing to do with what you actually have? Machiavelli understood something most people never grasp. The world doesn't judge you by who you truly are. It judges you by what it believes you are. Your worth isn't measured in reality. It's measured in perception. And perception, when mastered, becomes your most powerful weapon. This isn't about deception. It's about understanding a brutal truth. People see only what you allow them to see. They measure your value not by your bank account, your credentials, or your past, but by the image you project. The respect you command and the space you occupy in their minds. To be expensive is not to possess wealth. It is to embody it. To move through the world as if you already own what others are still chasing. Machiavelli called this virtù, the force that shapes fortune itself. It's not about pretending. It's about mastering the art of perceived power. So here's the question that will haunt you throughout this video. If everyone is watching your exterior, but only few truly know you, who controls the narrative of your worth? Them or you? Let's start with something uncomfortable. Something you've been taught to reject, but have always felt in your bones. Value is not real. It never has been. Look around you. Why is a diamond worth more than water when water keeps you alive? Why does a signature on canvas sell for millions when the materials cost pennies? Why do people respect a title more than the person wearing it? Because humans don't see reality. They see symbols. They see scarcity. They see what everyone else is looking at. And they call that value. Machiavelli knew this 5 centuries ago. He watched princes rise and fall not because of their actual abilities, but because of how they were perceived. A weak prince who appeared strong kept his throne. A strong prince who appeared weak lost everything. The masses, he said, judge by the eye, not by the hand. They see the surface. They believe the performance. And they never question what lies beneath, because they don't have access to it. This is the foundation of everything. If people only see what you show them, then your value is not determined by what you are. It's determined by what you choose to reveal, by what you withhold, by the story you allow others to tell themselves about you. Think about the most expensive things in your life. Not the price tags, the perception. The restaurant that makes you wait. The person who doesn't text back immediately. The brand that doesn't go on sale. What makes them expensive? Scarcity, distance, the refusal to be easily accessible. Now ask yourself, are you accessible? Do you give yourself away too freely? Do you explain yourself too much, apologize too quickly, make yourself too available? If so, you've made yourself cheap. Not because you lack value, but because you've taught others not to recognize it. Machiavelli would tell you this. The moment you stop controlling how you are seen is the moment you become worthless in the eyes of the world. Not because you've changed, but because perception is all that matters in the theater of human judgment. So here's the real question. If your worth is determined by perception, and perception is something you can architect, why are you still waiting for the world to recognize your value? Let's go deeper. Because being expensive isn't about tricks. It's about something Machiavelli called virtù. And it's the most misunderstood concept in his entire philosophy. Virtù is not virtue. It's not morality. It's not being nice or good or ethical. Virtù is force. It's the inner power that allows you to shape your external reality. It's the quality that makes others stop, look, and obey, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Machiavelli observed that some people command rooms without speaking. They negotiate without desperation. They lead without asking for permission. Why? Because they possess virtù, the force that bends perception itself. And here's what most people miss. Virtù is not something you're born with. It's something you build. Brick by brick. Choice by choice. In silence, in discipline, in the refusal to collapse under pressure. It has 3 pillars. And if you master them, you will never be cheap again. The first pillar is presence. Not the kind that screams for attention, the kind that doesn't need to. It's the weight you carry in a room. The way people pause when you speak. The unspoken understanding that you are not to be taken lightly. Presence comes from self-mastery. From knowing that you can control your reactions, your emotions, your words. When you are not reactive, people sense it. They feel that you operate from a different frequency, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Machiavelli understood this. A prince who panics loses his kingdom. A prince who remains calm in chaos becomes a legend. Because people don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the most composed one. The second pillar is confidence. But not the kind that boasts. The kind that simply knows. It's the quiet certainty that you don't need to prove yourself, because your value is self-evident. Here's the paradox. The more you try to convince others of your worth, the less they believe it. But the moment you stop seeking validation, they start seeing it everywhere. Why? Because confidence is the language of scarcity. It says, I know what I have, and I'm not desperate to share it with you. Machiavelli saw this in power dynamics. The prince who begs for loyalty never receives it. The prince who assumes loyalty commands it. Not because he's arrogant, but because he's already operating from the position. He wants others to see that the third pillar is detachment. This is the hardest one, because it requires you to care deeply about your goals, but not at all about how others perceive your journey toward them. Detachment is not indifference. It's freedom. It's the ability to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you, to let people misunderstand you, to watch opportunities pass because they weren't the right ones, to be alone rather than compromise your standards. And this, more than anything else, is what makes you expensive. Because the moment people sense you don't need them, they need you. Machiavelli was ruthless about this. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Why? Because love is conditional. It depends on others. But fear, or in modern terms, respect born from detachment, depends only on you. On your willingness to set boundaries, to say no, to let others wonder if they're good enough for you. Think about this. The cheapest thing you can do is chase. Chase approval, chase attention, chase relationships, chase opportunities. The moment you chase, you announce your lack, and people treat you accordingly. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you withdraw, the moment you make others come to you, you've just activated the scarcity principle. You've made yourself expensive simply by refusing to be easily obtained. So tell me, are you chasing? Or are you building Virtù in silence, knowing that the right people, the right opportunities, the right life will come to you when you've mastered the art of not needing them? What do you think so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now we enter dangerous territory. The territory most people refuse to acknowledge because it shatters their comfortable illusions about fairness and authenticity. The performance of indifference, the weaponization of absence, the dark psychology of making others want what they cannot easily have. Machiavelli knew this. Those who appear desperate are never taken seriously. Those who beg for a seat at the table are given scraps. But those who act as if they don't need the table, they're offered the head seat. This isn't manipulation. This is human nature. And if you refuse to understand it, you'll spend your entire life being undervalued by people who instinctively know how to play this game. Let's talk about scarcity, the fundamental economic principle that drives all human desire. When something is abundant, it's worthless. When something is rare, it becomes priceless. You are no exception to this rule. If you're always available, you're abundant. If you always respond immediately, you're abundant. If you always say yes, always accommodate, always bend to fit into other people's schedules, you are announcing to the world, I am common, I am easy, I am cheap. But what happens when you're not always available? when your time becomes a limited resource, when access to you requires effort, patience, planning, you become expensive. Not because you've gained anything, but because you've mastered the art of withholding. Machiavelli applied this to power. A prince who is always visible loses his mystique. A prince who appears selectively, who speaks rarely, who moves with calculated precision, he becomes a force people can't stop thinking about. Your absence creates space for others to project value onto you. Your silence forces them to fill the void with their own interpretations. And almost always they interpret scarcity as worth. Here's where it gets darker. People don't value what they have. They value what they might lose. This is why the person who's always there is taken for granted. Why the friend who never says no becomes invisible. Why the partner who's completely available becomes boring. Not because they lack quality, but because they've eliminated the tension that drives desire. Machiavelli was brutal about this. He observed that people are fickle. They're governed by emotion, not logic. And emotions are activated not by stability, but by uncertainty, by the fear of loss, by the thrill of the chase. So if you want to be expensive, you must learn to create that tension. Not through games, but through boundaries, through self-respect, through the understanding that your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. Let's talk about restraint. The most underrated form of power. In a world where everyone is performing, oversharing, desperately trying to be seen, restraint becomes revolutionary. The person who doesn't explain themselves, who doesn't defend their choices, who doesn't fill every silence with words, that person becomes magnetic. Why? Because restraint signals confidence. It says, I don't need your approval. I don't need to justify myself. I'm comfortable with mystery, with being misunderstood, with letting you wonder. Machiavelli understood this better than almost anyone. He said, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And those few dare not contradict the many who have the majesty of the state to defend them. Translation? The image you project will always be believed more than the truth of who you are. So why waste energy revealing everything? Why give people the tools to diminish you? Let them see the surface. Let them respect the mystery. And let your restraint do the work that your words never could. Think about the most expensive brands in the world. Do they explain themselves? Do they beg you to understand their value? No, they simply exist, with quiet confidence, with absolute certainty that if you don't get it, you're not their audience. You must become the same way. Now here's the final piece of this chapter, the one that will make you uncomfortable. Your emotions are making you cheap. Every time you react immediately to disrespect, you're cheap. Every time you argue to prove a point, you're cheap. Every time you show how much something hurt you, you're cheap. Not because emotions are wrong, but because emotional availability is the fastest way to lose power in any dynamic. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for cruelty. He was advocating for emotional sovereignty, for the ability to feel everything internally while revealing nothing externally. To be moved by your values but unmoved by other people's opinions. This is the performance of indifference. Not true indifference, but the performance of it. The ability to care deeply about what matters while appearing unshaken by what doesn't. And when you master this, when people can no longer manipulate you through guilt, through anger, through emotional pressure, you've just become the most expensive version of yourself. Because you've made yourself unreachable. Not physically, but emotionally. And emotional scarcity is the rarest commodity in a world where everyone is desperate to feel seen. So ask yourself, are you emotionally expensive? Or are you giving yourself away every time someone pulls the right string? I want to take a moment to thank you for staying with this video until now. Most people don't make it this far. But you did, and that tells me something about you. You're not looking for easy answers. You're looking for truth, and the best is still to come. Let's talk about the one thing that precedes you into every room you'll ever enter. The one thing that can open doors before you knock, or close them before you arrive, your reputation. Machiavelli was obsessed with this. He understood that reputation is not a reflection of who you are, it's a currency. It's a force that operates independently of your presence. It shapes how people treat you before they've met you. It determines what opportunities come to you, what respect you command, what power you wield. And here's the part most people miss. Your reputation is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. There is no neutral ground. Think about it. When someone mentions your name in a room you're not in, what story do they tell? What image do they paint? Do they speak of you with respect, with caution, with admiration? Or do they dismiss you, underestimate you, forget you entirely? That story, the one told in your absence, is your reputation, and it's worth more than anything you own. Machiavelli saw reputation as both a shield and a sword. A shield because it protects you from scrutiny. When your reputation is strong, people don't question your decisions. They assume competence. They grant you the benefit of the doubt. They fear challenging you because they know you've already proven yourself in ways they haven't. But reputation is also a sword. It intimidates before you act. It makes others think twice before crossing you. It creates space for you to move freely because people have already decided you're not someone to be taken lightly. So how do you build a reputation that makes you expensive? That makes you untouchable? First, through consistency. Not perfection, consistency. People need to know what to expect from you, not in a predictable, boring way, but in a reliable, trustworthy way. If you say you'll do something, you do it. If you set a boundary, you enforce it. If you make a promise, you keep it. This sounds simple, but most people fail here. They're inconsistent. They say one thing and do another. They compromise their standards when it's convenient. And over time, their reputation becomes one of weakness, of unreliability, of being easily swayed. Machiavelli would say, a prince must be consistent in his actions, because people form judgments based on patterns, not isolated events. One act of strength means nothing if followed by 10 acts of weakness, but 100 acts of consistent strength? That becomes legend. Second, through selective association. Your reputation is shaped not just by what you do, but by who you're seen with, by what you endorse, by what you tolerate. If you associate with people who are cheap, who lack standards, who complain constantly, who have no discipline, you will be perceived as cheap. Because people assume you reflect the company you keep. But if you associate with people who are expensive, who have standards, who command respect, who operate at a higher level, you will be perceived as expensive. Not because of who you are, but because of who you choose to stand beside. Machiavelli understood this in politics. A prince's reputation was destroyed not by his own failures, but by the failures of his advisors, his allies, his inner circle. Because people judged him by the quality of those he surrounded himself with. So ask yourself, who are you letting into your circle? Who are you giving your time, your energy, your endorsement to? Because they're not just affecting your life, they're affecting your reputation. Third, through strategic silence. This is the hardest one, because we live in a world that rewards noise, that rewards constant updates, constant opinions, constant presence. But expensive people are silent more than they speak. They don't explain themselves. They don't defend every criticism. They don't engage in every argument. They don't reveal their plans before they're executed. Why? Because silence creates mystery, and mystery creates speculation. And speculation amplifies reputation. Machiavelli knew this. He observed that the most feared leaders were not those who threatened constantly, but those who remained silent. Because silence forces others to imagine the worst, to fill the gaps with their own fears, to assume power where it might not even exist. Your silence is a tool. Use it strategically. Speak only when it adds value. only when it reinforces your reputation. The rest of the time, let your actions, your results, your presence speak for you. Fourth, through controlled vulnerability. This is the paradox. Because while you must appear strong, you cannot appear invincible. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with humanity, but only when it's revealed on your terms. Machiavelli never advocated for emotional numbness. He advocated for emotional strategy, for knowing when to show strength and when to show calculated vulnerability that makes others trust you, respect you, even love you, but never pity you. Expensive people share their struggles only after they've overcome them. They reveal their doubts only when doing so makes others respect their wisdom. They show vulnerability not as weakness, but as proof of their humanity, while maintaining the underlying message, I am still in control. Now here's the final truth about reputation. Once it's damaged, it's almost impossible to repair. Machiavelli was clear about this. A reputation takes years to build and moments to destroy. One act of cowardice, one public failure, one broken promise, and everything you've built can collapse. So you must protect your reputation as if your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Your reputation determines your opportunities, your relationships, your power, your worth in the eyes of the world. Does this mean you should live in fear of judgment? No, it means you should live with intention. Every choice you make is either building your reputation or eroding it. Every person you engage with is either elevating your name or diminishing it. Every word you speak is either reinforcing your image or contradicting it. Machiavelli would ask you this: if your reputation is the story others tell about you in your absence, what story are you writing right now? Everything we've discussed so far operates in a world you can control. Your presence, your actions, your reputation, your choices. But Machiavelli knew something else. Something that terrified princes and philosophers alike. Fortune, the unpredictable, uncontrollable force that sweeps through life and destroys everything you've built. The market crashes, the relationship ends, the opportunity vanishes, the plan fails. The carefully constructed image crumbles under circumstances you never saw coming. Machiavelli spent years thinking about this. About the tension between Virtù, force you control, and Fortuna, the chaos you don't. He concluded that fortune controls about half of our lives, the other half. That's where Virtù operates. That's where you have power. But here's the secret that makes someone truly expensive. Even in the face of fortune's cruelty, expensive people don't wait for fortune to favor them. They act as if they've already conquered it. Let me explain. Most people are at the mercy of circumstances. When things go well, they feel valuable. When things go badly, they collapse. Their sense of worth is tied entirely to external conditions, to whether they're winning or losing in the moment. But expensive people have severed that connection. Their value is not conditional on outcomes, it's internal. It's sovereign. It exists regardless of what fortune brings. This is what Machiavelli called mental fortitude. The ability to stand firm when everything around you is falling apart. To maintain composure when others are panicking. To make decisions from a place of clarity rather than desperation. Think about the people you admire most. The ones who command respect. What do they all have in common? They don't crumble under pressure. They don't become cheap when circumstances become difficult. They remain expensive because their worth is not determined by their situation. It's determined by how they respond to it. Here's where it gets practical. Because mental sovereignty isn't some abstract philosophical concept. It's a daily practice. A series of choices that compound over time. First, you must separate your identity from your circumstances. You are not your bank account. You are not your job title. You are not your relationship status. You are not the sum of your recent wins or losses. You are the force that navigates through all of it, the constant in a world of variables. The Virtù that persists even when Fortuna turns against you. Machiavelli would say, "A prince who ties his identity to his kingdom will be destroyed the moment he loses it. But a prince who knows his power exists within him, that prince can lose everything and rebuild from nothing, because he hasn't lost himself." Second, you must cultivate certainty in uncertainty. This sounds impossible, but it's not. It means training yourself to be comfortable with not knowing what's coming next, to make peace with the fact that you can't control outcomes, only your response to them. Expensive people are not afraid of uncertainty. They expect it. They prepare for it. And when it arrives, they don't collapse into anxiety or desperation. They adapt. They pivot. They respond with the same composure they had when things were stable. This is what separates those who remain expensive through chaos from those who become cheap the moment pressure arrives. Third, you must develop what Machiavelli called the long view, the ability to zoom out, to see setbacks as temporary, to understand that fortune is cyclical, that today's loss might be tomorrow's lesson, that this moment of struggle is not your entire story. Cheap people live in the tyranny of the present. They catastrophize. They overreact. They make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. And they destroy their reputation, their relationships, their future in moments of panic. But expensive people operate from a different timeline. They know this too shall pass. They know they've survived worse. They know their value isn't determined by this one moment. It's determined by the pattern of a lifetime. Fourth, you must master the art of strategic withdrawal, knowing when to fight and when to retreat, when to push forward and when to preserve your energy for a better moment. Machiavelli observed that many princes fell not because they were weak, but because they didn't know when to step back. They overextended. They fought battles they couldn't win. They burned through resources in moments that didn't matter. Expensive people know that not every battle deserves their energy. They choose carefully. They protect their resources, time, attention, reputation, and deploy them only when the conditions are right. This isn't cowardice. It's strategy. It's understanding that sometimes the most powerful move is to do nothing. To wait. To let fortune exhaust itself while you remain intact. Now here's the final insight. The one that will change how you see everything. Fortune doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't reward the deserving or punish the wicked. It's random. It's chaos. It's the wind that blows where it wants. But here's what fortune does respect: preparation, resilience, the refusal to be broken. Machiavelli said fortune is like a raging river. When it floods, it destroys everything in its path. But those who built dams, who prepared for the flood, who understood its nature, they survive. Not because they controlled the river, but because they respected its power and prepared accordingly. You cannot control fortune, but you can control whether it destroys you. You do this by building an expensive mind. A mind that doesn't need external validation to feel valuable. A mind that doesn't collapse under pressure. A mind that operates from a place of internal sovereignty, regardless of what's happening outside. This is the ultimate form of being expensive. Not because of what you have, but because of what you cannot be taken from. Your composure, your clarity, your unshakable sense of self. When you've built this, when your worth is no longer dependent on circumstances, when you can walk through chaos with the same calm you had in peace, you've transcended the game entirely. You're no longer trying to appear expensive. You simply are. Because your value is no longer conditional on anything the world can give or take away. Machiavelli would call this true virtù, the force that not even fortune can destroy. So here we are, at the end of this journey through Machiavelli's mind, through the architecture of perceived power, through the uncomfortable truths about human nature, value, and the games we all play whether we admit it or not. Let me ask you again, are you expensive? Not in your bank account, not in your possessions, but in the way you move through the world, in the respect you command, in the space you occupy in other people's minds. Because Machiavelli would tell you this: the moment you stop performing your value is the moment you lose it. Not because you've changed, but because perception is all that matters. And perception, like power, is never given. It's taken. You take it by mastering Virtù, by building presence, confidence, and detachment that make others see you as rare, unreachable, valuable. You take it by understanding the performance of indifference, by making yourself scarce, by weaponizing your absence, by refusing to be cheap in a world desperate for your cheapness. You take it by protecting your reputation as if your life depends on it. Because it does. Your reputation is the story others tell about you. And if you don't control that story, someone else will. You take it by developing mental sovereignty, by separating your worth from your circumstances, by becoming the kind of person who remains expensive even when fortune turns against them. Because your value is not conditional, it's internal. It's uncheckable. This is not about manipulation. This is not about tricks. This is about understanding the brutal, uncomfortable truth that Machiavelli spent his life documenting. The world judges by appearances, not reality. And if you refuse to master appearances, you will spend your entire life being undervalued by people who instinctively know how to play this game. So what now? You have a choice. You can reject everything you've heard here. You can tell yourself that authenticity is enough, that being yourself is all that matters, that people will eventually recognize your worth if you just keep being genuine. And maybe they will. Maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe fortune will smile on you without you having to do anything. But Machiavelli would tell you, hope is not a strategy. Waiting for the world to recognize your value is not a plan. It's a surrender. Or you can choose differently. You can choose to become expensive. Not by changing who you are, but by mastering how you're seen. By building Virtù, by architecting perception, by taking control of the narrative that determines your worth. The world is not fair. It never has been. But it is predictable. And if you understand the patterns, the psychology, the game beneath the game, you can play it better than those who pretend it doesn't exist. So I'll leave you with this question. The same question Machiavelli would have asked 500 years ago. Will you continue living as a reflection of what others think you should be? Or will you become the architect of how they see you? Think about it. Really think about it. And then tell me in the comments, what's the most valuable thing you possess that no one can see? If this resonated with you, if you felt something shift in how you see yourself in the world, subscribe to this channel. Because what you've learned here is only the beginning. There's so much more waiting for you. And if you want to continue this journey into the mind of power, into the uncomfortable truths about human nature, watch the next recommended video. Because the path to becoming expensive, to becoming the kind of person others can't help but respect, doesn't end here. It's just beginning.